people to move in the neighborhoods, but clean their own neighborhoods. And another thing, when you say integration, it comes under intermarriage too, right? All
Right.
being together.
Right, sure.
And I'm sure no intelligent white person watching this show, or no intelligent white man in his or her right white mind want black boys and black girls marrying their white sons and daughters, and in return introducing their grandchildren as half brown, kinky-haired black people.
I wouldn't object to that.
Well, you wouldn't, but a lot of them would.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people.
And
No, this is the point.
what I'm trying to say is this. And you don't have it. You say you don't, but you don't have it. You really ain't gonna have it. You on the show, and you got to say that. But
that's not true.
why would you want to do that?
Because
Don't you
I
love
don't
yourself?
think I'm any different from you. You see.
We much different.
I
Let's
mean, I
face
think
it, man.
society's made us
You know
different.
we're different. And we all together.
But society's made us different.
No, not society. God made us different.
No, we're just human beings. He made all of us.
We all listen. Bluebirds fly with bluebirds. Red birds want to be with red birds. Listen. Tell me when I'm wrong. Pigeons want to be with pigeons.
But
Tell
we
me
have
when I'm wrong.
intelligence.
Well,
We have an
we
intellect
must.
that they
Well, we
don't
should have.
have.
Right, they don't have intelligence, but yet
No.
they stay together. We should have more intelligence than them, right? Buzzards are with buzzards. Yeah. Buzzards are with buzzards. Bluebirds are with bluebirds. They all are birds, but they got different cultures. The eagles like to hang out in the mountains. The buzzard like to fly around the desert.
Well,
the bluebird like to fly around the trees
There'd
and
be
the
certain
grass.
problems a buzzard mating with a sparrow, wouldn't there?
What?
There'd be certain.
Right. And that's, we have the problems too.
No,
I don't see no black and white couples in England or America walking around proud holding their children
That's because society.
and going out.
That's society's fault. I mean, we've got to educate people around it.
Well, life is too short for me to be raised catching hell for something like that. I'd rather go and be my own. I have a beautiful daughter, beautiful wife. They look like me. We're all happy, and I don't have no trouble. I ain't got no trouble. I ain't that much in love with no woman to go through all that hell. Ain't no one woman that good. You understand?
I understand. Yeah, I do understand. I understand. I think it's sad that.
It ain't sad because I want my child to look like me. Every intelligent person wants his child to look like him. I'm sad because I want to blot out my race and lose my beautiful identity. Chinese love Chinese. They love the little slanted-eyed, pretty brown-skinned babies. Pakistanis love their culture. Jewish people love their culture. A lot of Catholics don't want
Muhammad
nothing with
Ali
Catholics. They want
was the greatest name for a slave master ever. In 1964, a young boxer named Cassius Clay won an upset victory over Sonny Liston and became heavyweight champion of the world. Later that year, Clay changed his name, first to Cassius X, then to Muhammad Ali. Why did he change his name? Let's let him answer.
Why don't you like to be called Clay anymore?
No, Clay was not my name. Once we follow the believe, hear the understand the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and come into knowledge of ourselves, then we want to be called after names of our people, which are names that fit us black people. And Clay was a white man's name. It was a slave name. And I'm no longer Clay, I'm no longer a slave, so now I'm Muhammad Ali.
So, Clay was a white man's name, but Muhammad and Ali were names for his people.
We want to be called after names of our people.
What people would that be? Arab slave masters? Because that's who Muhammad and his son-in-law Ali were, according to Muslim sources. And let's not forget that Arabs can exhibit a variety of shades and tones. Here's an example of an Arab. Looking at this picture, you may be wondering, did Opie Taylor grow up and convert to Islam? No, this is Sheikh Muhammad al-Yaqubi, the 34th grandson of Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam. This guy's so white, he tried to buy Go-Gurts at Whole Foods. And this is exactly what we would expect based on descriptions of Muhammad in Islam's most trusted sources. Sahih al-Bukhari, number 63. Narrated Anas bin Malik. While we were sitting with the Prophet in the mosque, a man came riding on a camel. He made his camel kneel down in the mosque, tied its foreleg, and then said, "Who amongst you is Muhammad?" At that time, the Prophet was sitting amongst us, leaning on his arm. We replied, "This white man," reclining on his arm. Why did Muhammad's followers refer to him as this white man? Because he was so white, he took off his shirt at night and got a third-degree moonburn.
Clay was a white man's name.
Sahih Muslim, number 6081. It was narrated that Abu Juhayfa said, I saw the Messenger of Allah with a white complexion and some white hairs. What do you call 1,000,000 Muhammads jumping out of an airplane? Snow.
Clay was a white man's name.
Sahih Muslim, 6071. It was narrated from Al-Jurairi from Abu at-Tufail. I said to him, did you see the Messenger of Allah? He said, yes, he was white, with an elegant face. Muhammad's so white, he jumped into a hot tub and the water turned into creamer.
Clay was a white man's name.
The Muslim sources go on and on about Muhammad's epic whiteness, telling us about the whiteness of his shins, and the whiteness of his thigh, and the whiteness of his leg, and the whiteness of his stomach, and the whiteness of his forearms, and the whiteness of his armpits, and the whiteness of his cheeks. I hope everyone brought soup, because I just found the world's biggest cracker.
We want to be called after names of our people.
White people?
Clay was a white man's name.
Muhammad was a white man's name. He was the whitest prophet in history. Now, how many Muhammads would it take to screw in a light bulb? None. He would just tell one of his more than 36 slaves to do it. Let's read about some of these slaves. Sahih al-Bukhari, number 7263. Narrated Umar, I went to the house of the Prophet, and behold, Allah's messenger was staying in a mashraba, and a black slave of Allah's messenger was at the top of its stairs. I said to him, tell the Prophet that here is Umar bin al-Khattab. Then he admitted me. Sahih al-Bukhari, 6161. Narrated Anas bin Malik, Allah's messenger was on a journey, and he had a black slave called Anjasha, and he was driving the camels very fast, and there were women riding on those camels. Allah's messenger said, Why haka, O Anjasha, drive slowly the camels with the glass vessels, i.e. the women. Muhammad was so white, when his black slave Anjasha needed to beep at him, the horn on Anjasha's camel was like, honky, honky. Sunan an-Nasai, number 4625. It was narrated that Jabir said, a slave came and gave his pledge to the Messenger of Allah to emigrate, and the Prophet did not realize that he was a slave. Then his master came looking for him. The Prophet said, sell him to me. So he bought him for 2 black slaves. Then he did not accept the pledge of anyone after that until he had asked, is he a slave? So an Arab man walked up to Muhammad and said, I'd like to join you. Do you accept my pledge? Muhammad replied, yes. But the man turned out to be a slave. So Muhammad had to buy the slave from his master. And what did he buy him with? He bought him with 2 of his numerous black slaves. Apparently, black slaves were only half as valuable as Arab slaves. Of course, Muhammad didn't want to keep giving up his black slaves, so he decided to be more careful about taking the pledge. Notice, by the way, how black slaves are described in Islam's most trusted sources. Trading slaves is equivalent to trading animals. Here's one about a black slave who was shot to death while unloading Muhammad's luggage. Sunan an-Nasai, 3858. It was narrated that Abu Huraira said, we were with the Messenger of Allah in the year of Khaybar, and we did not get any spoils of war except for wealth, goods, and clothes. Then a man from Banu ad-Dubayb, who was called Rifa bin Zayd, gave the Messenger of Allah a black slave who was called Middam. The Messenger of Allah set out for Wadi al-Qura. When we were in Wadi al-Qura, while Middam was unloading the luggage of the Messenger of Allah, an arrow came and killed him. The people said, congratulations, you will go to paradise. But the Messenger of Allah said, no, by the one in whose hand is my soul, The cloak that he took from the spoils of war on the day of Khaybar is burning him with fire. So Middam, one of Muhammad's many black slaves, grabbed a cloak before the spoils were divided after the Battle of Khaybar, and that earned him a one-way trip to hell. Hence, according to Muhammad, if you take something from the spoils of war before the spoils have been divided, you're going to hell, right? Not so fast. Let's read about what happened when Muhammad's son-in-law, Ali, the Ali in Muhammad Ali's name, took a slave girl from the spoils of war without permission. Sahih al-Bukhari, 4350. Narrated Buraida. The Prophet sent Ali to Khalid to bring the khumus of the booty. The khumus was the portion of the war booty that was taken directly to Muhammad. Muhammad would get 1/5 of everything taken as spoils of war, including sex slaves. And I hated Ali, and Ali had taken a bath after a sexual act with a slave girl from the khumus. I said to Khalid, "Don't you see this?" i.e. Ali. When we reached the Prophet, I mentioned that to him. He said, "Oh, Buraida, do you hate Ali?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Don't hate him, for he deserves more than that from the khumus." So Ali had sex with a slave girl from the spoils designated for Muhammad himself before Muhammad decided what to do with his portion of the spoils, and Muhammad had no problem with it. Thus, if you're a black slave and you take something from the spoils, you're going to hell. If you're Muhammad's son-in-law and you take something from the spoils, no one's allowed to question you. And it's not like Ali had to steal a sex slave from the khumus, since Muhammad was happy to give sex slaves to his favorite companions. As we read in the History of At-Tabari, Volume 9, page 29, from the captives of Hunayn, the Messenger of God gave Ali ibn Abi Talib a slave girl called Rayta bin Hilal. Like Muhammad, Ali was a slave owner and a slave trader. He had both black and Arab slaves. This means, of course, that when Cassius Clay changed his name to Muhammad Ali, he was taking the names of two men who bought, owned, sold, and traded black African slaves.